So the All Black squad for the Rugby Championship has just been announced. A 36-man squad was initially going to be named, but with the amount of injury cover, it's more like 42. But some curveballs, some exciting young prospects. We'll be looking through at them all in this video. But jumping straight into it, in the hookers for the All Blacks, no changes compared to what we saw in the All Blacks versus France series. It will be Brodie McAllister, Samisoni Taukei'aho, and also Cody Taylor. There were talks of an Asafua Moore inclusion, but he did not play on the weekend for the NPC, so perhaps he is maybe just that little bit further from coming back. Plus McAllister, he only got one cap, so obviously Razor, for that initial selection, wants to give him that bit more time to grow. In the jersey, we move on to the props. Ethan de Groot, Tyrell Lomax, who has got the little asterisk next to him. We'll see a lot of that throughout this lineup, but he is being injury covered by Tavita Mafaleo. So big chance for that man. He's had one game for the All Blacks XV. That was back in 2022, and now does earn a spot back into the squad. Some people possibly quite surprised about the exclusion of George Dyer, seeing as he was training with the side. But in this case, they have given Mafaleo the nod. Lomax looking to be back and around 4 to 5 weeks. Fletcher Null, Ollie Norris, Pasilio Tosi, and also Tamaiti Williams. So on paper, it is the same 6 props that they had for the France series, but in reality, there are 2 injury cover players, being Tavita Mafaleo and also George Bauer. He is the cover for Tamaiti Williams. In the locks, it is the same 4. Scott Barrett, who will be the captain. Fabian Holland, who had an outstanding July International Series. 240 minutes played up against the French. He was one of the busiest players out there on the field. His line-out game's strong, and he just seems like a massive prospect for this All Black side. Patrick Tuipulotu, who he did partner very nicely with in Test match number 3, and then Tupou Vaa'i. Now, he's been named as a lock, but of course he was playing 6 throughout that series up against the French, and I think we'll see a little bit more of that perhaps in the Rugby Championship too. Moving on to the loose forwards, it is Samapeni Finau. Luke Jacobson with the asterisk. His injury cover is actually Josh Lord, which is a bit of an intriguing one. So obviously wanting that little bit of extra height as well as a lock option for the ABs. That could be a sign that Tupou Vaa'i will be playing in the loose forward trio. But Jacobson, he had that thigh injury, going to be out for another 4 or so weeks. So Josh Lord, he'll get a bit of a chance with the All Blacks. Maybe could be looked at for Argentina. But outside of that, I think once Jacobson returns, the All Blacks will have their locks. Also, a little bit unlucky, you could say, for Naitoa Akoi. Sam Derry also just returning in the game for Canterbury in last week's NPC. Possibly not quite on Scott Robertson's radar just as of yet, but 2 players that were. Peter Larkai, he made his return from a relatively long injury for Wellington. Simon Parker, I did pick him in my All Black side that I would have wanted to see for the Rugby Championship. I actually picked him for my initial All Black squad too, and the reason that he missed out the first time around, I believe, was because of injury. This time he is back match fit. He's a dangerous prospect. I mentioned about the comparisons between him and Liam Squire, both very physical players. He can play 6, he can play 8, and hopefully gets to play some minutes for the All Blacks this year. Duplessis Karefi keeps his spot in the side. Adi Savia as one of the vice-captains, and then Wallace Satiti back after his injury without the asterisk next to him, so that is good news, means he's progressing well. But that also brings no Christian Leo Willie for the All Blacks. Probably a little bit unlucky to miss out here, definitely with the fact that Luke Jacobson did have an injury cover player, but Leo Willie, no injury that we know of, but initially was only going to be cover for the squad. So perhaps that's the way that he did get looked at for this lineup. Moving on to the halfbacks, unchanged from the July Internationals. A little bit of a surprise there. Noah Hotham, Cortez Ratama, and Cam Roigard. The 2 injury cover players, though, it will be Kyle Preston and Finlay Christie. Now, Finlay was actually injured over the weekend before even playing the game for Tasman, but he will be all right to cover for the ABs. Of course, we don't know the significance yet of the Cam Roigard injury. Scan taking place in about 2 weeks, and then from there they'll know how long he's going to be out for. Hopefully it's not too long. I know a lot of people want to see him in the games up against the Springboks. Noah Hotham, his injury is a little bit more long term, so either Kyle Preston or Christie. I'm not sure who is covering for who as of yet, but some minutes definitely coming for one of those 2 men in the very near future. In the first 5/8, it's going to be Beauden Barrett and Damian McKenzie. No real surprises in that regard. Midfield is identical to July. Geordie Barrett as the other vice-captain. He had a very strong July international series. Anton Leonard-Brown, he was ruled out for injury over the weekend with a bit of a shoulder problem. It was different to his collarbone injury, but he is all right, and he will have the potential for minutes up against Argentina. Billy Proctor, Timothy Tavatavanawa actually played out on the wing over the weekend in the NPC, and then Quintupaia, the last centre that the All Blacks have got in the outside channels. It will be Caleb Clark, who does have injury cover of Leroy Carter. Now that man, he was very close, I believe, to getting selected in the initial All Black squad. He had a couple slightly quiet games near the end of the season for the Chiefs, but he was actually playing 13 for Bay of Plenty in the most recent Bunnings NPC fixture, so that versatility, I wonder whether or not it was that got him over the line in terms of that selection. Now, of course, he is just the injury cover for now, but I think if he can perform like he did for the Chiefs throughout Super Rugby Pacific, it will not be too long at all before we see Leroy Carter get a mainstay spot. On this All Black side, Rieko Ioane, Will Jordan, those two, of course, very expected. Heading forward, Jordan will be playing predominantly fullback with maybe some right wing cover for the Rugby Championship. Rieko Ioane, I would say they'll position him out on that left wing side. And that also means that Sevu Reece, another man who was named in the squad, can go back to the right wing, as Leroy Carter can also play on the left. Ruben Love and Amoni Narawa now gets himself promoted from injury cover in July to now a main squad member for the Rugby Championship comp. Last year, he was actually one of the players who got cut from the side at this exact time. So it's great news that he's made his way in and hopefully will do well in the matches that he plays. But that is the All Black squad, ladies and gentlemen. So a lot of changes compared to what we saw in July, mainly down to those injuries. I don't think I've seen an All Black squad in a very long time with 6 injury cover players, but that just shows how physical this year has been on the ABs, and it's going to be a very tough one for Scott Robertson when it comes round to November. Of course, some of these guys who are injury cover, they may perform, and then in that case, there are some very tough decisions that do need to be made. But do let me know what you think of this All Black squad in the comments down below. Their first game up against Argentina taking place in 2 weeks' time. We will be covering it on the channel as well as the lineups. We'll also be doing a couple of videos based around this squad in the near future, so be sure to check those out as well. But thank you all very much for tuning in, and I will see you all for the next one.